Hey y'all, so y'all know our little country known for many things. Like we have warm weather, we have pink sand beaches, we have some of the best pineapples in the world, we have friendly people, but because of Mr. Cordell Farrington, we were put on the map for all the wrong reasons. We are also known for having one of the most prolific serial killers in Caribbean history. Mr. Farrington is responsible for taking the lives of 11-year-old Mackinson Colas, 13-year-old D'Angelo McKenzie, 11-year-old Junior Remy, 14-year-old Desmond Roll, and his 22-year-old lover Jamal Robbins. So Cordell Darrell Farrington was born in 1968 and he resided on the island of Grand Bahama. Like, there wasn't much information I could find on Cordell as it relates to his childhood, but according to him, he said he was severely abused as a child. Mentally, physically, and sexually abused. At some point in his adult life, he became addicted to smoking crack cocaine. But according to a source that I found online, he was able to rehabilitate himself over time.
Crack is whack.
Up until the time Cordell let the devil use him, he led a pretty normal life. Like, he was a pretty normal guy, you know, just like everybody else. But you know what shocked me the most? Although he held down jobs, Cordell was in training to be a priest. What the? A priest?
Jesus, what is this?
Sure, please. Cordell was also an artist, surprisingly. He was an artist, and he had some of his drawings exhibited at the, at the Artists Association of Grand Bahama. I think that's the name of it. I think that's what it's called. So, you know, hindsight is always 20/20. Cordell used to draw pictures of little boys crying. Like, how weird is like that? Child, please give me goosebumps in here. Like, that's so weird. And like I say, hindsight is always 20/20. Like, nobody would ever see anything wrong with that when he was first showing off his little drawings. And they'd be like, okay, well, what's the inspiration behind this? So, moving right along, Cordell, he had 3 kids. According to this online article, he had 3 kids, but in the interview with Clint Watson, he only alluded to the little girl that he had. He said he had a young daughter at the time, one of whom was an infant at the time of his destruction. Some sources online said that he was married, and then some sources said that he just had a baby mother, girlfriend, who was only identified as Dean. So, yeah, according to Dean, Cordell was a pretty good daddy. Like, he was, you know, just like a regular daddy. Good daddy, take care of his children. But she noticed when boy started dropping weight. Remember, I tell you all, he was rehabilitated from his crack cocaine problem. But, child, Miss Jean noticed Cordell was dropping away too quick. So she was like, I ain't dealing with this. Like, who wants to deal with that? I thought homegirl pack up her stuff and dip out. But, like, see, that's my issue with cases like this. It's so hard to find information, factual information. It took me a long time to do this video because I was, like, just trying my hardest to find information about, like, factual information about Cordell and his life and what led him to do what he did. So, anyway, like I say, some sources said that Dean leave him when she was dropping the weight, but then other sources said that they were together up until the time that he turned himself in. How these stories go over here, everybody get their little 2 cents to put in, so y'all, maybe somebody could help me with that. Cordell ended up getting a job as a warehouse worker, and I don't think that he was there very long, but like shortly after that, my boy let the devil do the little 1-2 dance on his shoulder, whispering in his ear, because that's when things took a turn for the worse. He started, please start letting the devil use him. So now it was the 16th of May 2003 when Cordell was just cruising down Pioneer's Way in Freeport when he saw Mackinson Colas, who was 11 years old at the time. He approached Mackinson and kind of coerced him into getting into his vehicle. Now, I know what Cordell told this boy, but Mackinson must have felt comfortable enough to go with Cordell. I don't think that he saw Cordell as a threat at the time. So he ended up going into his vehicle with him. He gets into the vehicle and Cordell takes him home by Cordell's house. Well, once they got inside, Cordell told Mackinson to get in the tub or go take a shower or something like that. Nah, I'm wondering what's going on in Mackinson's head at this point, because he probably thinking something fishy now. Like, I don't know you like that house. Why you telling me to go bed? What I gotta go bed for? So anyway, must see after the shower, Cordell then tells 11-year-old Mackinson that he has to kill him. And I'm like, who? Who killing who? So imagine the shared terror on this baby's face. Like, okay, yeah, he was an 11-year-old, but to us, like, they still little babies. So imagine this big gray ass man telling you that he gonna kill you. Like, I would have been scared. So Mackinson asked him, so he was like, why you gotta kill me? Cordell Farrington gonna say, I just have to do it.
Nigga!
I was weak. Like, somebody much bigger than you that could easily overpower you telling you they can kill you. Like, I would have been scared. And you know what's crazy? I was the same age as Mackinson back in 2003. So I was 11 as well. And I could only imagine me being horrified. Okay? Like, I couldn't imagine being in that predicament. And that is why this researching this did something to me. Like, I can't even lie. So now Cordell takes a frightened Mackinson, ties him up using duct tape, and bludgeoned him to death with a wooden plank. Oh my God. Cordell puts Mackinson's body in the back trunk of his car, and then he drove the car to Barbary Beach. I think that's how you pronounce it. Barbary Beach. Anyway, y'all free people help me. Yeah, he takes the body to Barbary Beach and he buries it. And if that wasn't bad enough, nigga man going back 2 weeks later and dig the remains up and take them with him. What is he doing? So now, I keep saying so now. Cordell Farrington went on his merry way, and it was business as usual for about 11 days until he had a little itch to kill again. On May 27th, after a long day of learning, 13-year-old D'Angelo McKenzie was walking home from school, and he was walking through the Church of God's parking lot, and he was approached by Cordell. Cordell asked D'Angelo if he could help him get some equipment for the church or something like that. So I don't know if D'Angelo hesitated, but Cordell ended up convincing him to go with him, and he did. He got into the car with Cordell, and Cordell took him home. Now, mind you, I grew up on an island, and in Eleuthera, especially in the village, like, if someone asks you to go somewhere for them or do something for them, you can do it, because number one, we know them, and number two, we had the innocence of kids. Like, we didn't think that adults that we knew would ever harm or hurt us. So that's why we did it. And I'm not saying that D'Angelo knew Cordell personally. I just assuming he felt comfortable enough. So that's another thing that I want to have a conversation about. I did this to like so that we could have a discussion about predators that hide in plain sight, because it's just like when we tell young children, oh, if anybody do anything to you, go tell an adult. But it's the adults that hurt them too. Cordell now gets 13-year-old D'Angelo in his home. This way it gets sick. He rapes D'Angelo not once but twice. A kid, a 13-year-old, a little boy. Whew, child. Anyway, after committing this ungodly act on this innocent little baby, he asked D'Angelo about his family. If D'Angelo is anything like me, I got an attitude off the rip. Because, number one, you just raped me, dog. What you don't ask me nothing? Don't ask me nothing, because I ain't telling you nothing. At this point, I ain't sure if D'Angelo even answered him or gave him any information about his family. But it was then that Cordell tells him that he has to kill him. He like telling people that, like, I gotta kill you. This was the part that, like, eat me up inside. Like, I was so torn. D'Angelo tells Cordell, I just want to go to school and have a good education. And I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher, and that made my heart hurt so bad. Like, so bad. Like, right now, I ready to walk from Carmichael out Fox Hill, go to Her Majesty's prison and tell him, give me 15 minutes with Cordell.
Oh shit, what is that?
This sicko then ties D'Angelo up using duct tape, and he beat him in the head with this same wooden plank. Now I starting to believe like this is preferred method of killing, like bludgeoning, and it's sick. So he put the boy's body into the trunk of his car, and people, did Cordell have any neighbors? Because if they anything like you people, your neighbors nosy. Like, nobody saw him loading these bodies in the back of his trunk. And although they're kids, they're still bigger kids. Like, they're 11, 13 years old. It ain't like they know infants or toddlers, so you could easily toss up in trouble. Like, you gotta struggle to lift a 14-year-old and put him in the trunk. Like, nobody saw him. He takes the body to Barbary Beach again. Like, Cordell just making me sick at this point. Like, he just pissing me off. So after he took D'Angelo's body and buried it out at the beach, there was almost a 2-month break where he was just going about living his life like a golden. Like, he was just, it was business as normal routine. Everything was just how it was before, as if he just didn't kill 2 people. Weirdo. On the 29th of July, Cordell was out scouring around Christ the King Anglican Church. And at this point, I think and Cordell just need to stay away from churches, because that's just where he like to scout out these little children look like. So anyway, he spots 11-year-old Junior Remy. And I don't know what he said to Junior, but Junior ended up going in Cordell's car. He took Junior home to his house, and he told Junior to get in the tub. So, like, this make me happy for a split second, because Junior was like, no, I want bed, and that was that, right? Like, he refused to go in the tub, so, you know, that made sicko Cordell mad. Cordell tried to tie Junior up, but then he started to scream. And let me tell you, like, when I was reading up on this, I was so happy, because, yeah, somebody needs to stand up to this old dog. Anyway, Junior started to make noise. So Cordell then takes a knife and he stabs Junior in the neck. The crazy part about this one was that Cordell did all of this to Junior in the house where his child was. Now, I'm hoping that this was the infant, because if it was an older child and that child was anything like me, I was always inquisitive. Like, I coming out to find out what's going on. Like, who's skylocking out there? I coming to find out what the noise about, what all the racket about. So now Junior Remy is deceased from the stab wound to the neck, and he loaded him up into the back trunk and took him to, you guessed it, Barbary Beach. Freeport people, please, like, help me out. You know, nobody's be on the beach all day. Like, I don't know, like, Cordell carrying on like this is private beach with like with the lucha people. Somebody always out somewhere, like somebody always out where they ain't supposed to be, so they would have spotted him. Like, Cordell was just carrying on like this was his private property to do whatever he wanted to do, bury whatever bodies he wanted to out there. And like, it just make me so angry. Like, it makes me mad. So boom, 2 months go by since Cordell killed Junior, and it was on September 28th when he was headed to Williamstown, and he spotted 14-year-old Desmond Roll on a park. Now, he approached Desmond, and he must have told him to come with him. And Desmond had to hesitate and say, like, no, I ain't going with you, blah, blah, blah. So Cordell now tells Desmond, oh, I know your mommy and your brother. I guess that kind of relaxed Desmond a little bit, and he left and he went with Cordell. This sicko doesn't take Desmond by his place like he did with the previous victims. He drove to like a bushy area. He handcuffed Desmond and he raped him. Cordell then cuts Desmond's throat and takes the body back to the car and performs a sexual act with the dead body. So now this dirty buzzard could add necrophiliac to his resume. Like, he makes me so sick. Like, I was so sick. He takes Desmond's body to Barbary Beach because at this point, this is his favorite spot. He cuts open his chest and takes out this poor baby's heart and cut him up. He severed his limbs. Now, if this don't make y'all want to hang this nigga in Rawson Square on Boxing Day, I don't know what will. Like, I ready to get my cowbells and my goatskin drum and I ready to party. That's just how that made me feel. Like, reading this, like, it was just sick, man. It was sick. Cordell says that he just wanted to try a new way of killing. Like, it's just like trying out a new recipe. Oh yeah, I just want to try it this way now. Like, nigga, no. So here we are now. 4 beautiful little boys are missing and Grand Bahama is in a frenzy. But let me take y'all back a little bit before we get into how Cordell murdered his boyfriend. Because yes, he was carrying on a homosexual relationship with a 22-year-old young man named Jamal Robbins. So remember I say y'all Cordell had a crack addiction, right? Well, he was admitted to Sandlands, but it wasn't for crack cocaine. It was actually for bestiality. And for those of y'all who don't know what bestiality is, y'all go Google it. But I will say this. If you get any little dogs or cats or goats in the yard or something, don't leave them around Cordell. That's all I gotta say. Anyway, it was at Sandlands, not to be confused with the school, that Cordell met Jamal Robbins, and there they forged this sexual relationship. So after they both completed their stints for drug addictions and the other little thing that Cordell used to do to them poor animals, they both moved back to Grand Bahama and they began to live together. Now they living together and whoop-de-woo like one big happy family until things took a turn for the worse. That's when Cordell started to suspect that Jamal was stealing money and doing drugs. Well, it said stealing. I'm assuming it's money, but he started stealing and doing drugs again, and child, that pissed Cordell right off. Because, you know, I guess he's saying we done make all this progress, we done kick these habits we had, and you going to start up again. Cordell snapped, okay? And it was around 6:30 in the morning when they started arguing, and that led to Cordell then killing his boyfriend. Cordell knocked on the door of their male roommate because they had someone else living in the house with them. So he knocked on the door of the male roommate and told him that he had just killed Jamal and he needed to help him dispose of the body. Now, get this. He was sleeping with the roommate too.
Jesus, what is this?
So now the roommate runs to their room because at this point he didn't believe him until he looked on the floor and was shook because he saw Jamal laying on the floor deceased. Nah, I don't know about y'all, but I was telling, but the roommate couldn't tell because he had to keep Cordell's secret because Cordell was basically keeping his. He was pretending to be straight in the day and basically started fighting at night. And it's so sad to see how society just like drag these people through the mud when they only want to live their lives, and they should be free to do so without social reprimand. That's why we have so much closeted men marrying women today to cover up their preference and using these poor women as beards. Leave these people alone. Let them love who they love. Like I say, once you know your sexual preference, I know my sexual preference. If the homosexuals ain't like pressuring me to do nothing, then their lifestyle has nothing to do with me personally. And you all have to realize we all go into God for our own sins. You're not going to God for anybody else, but to take account for what you did in this life. Moving right along, Cordell and the roommate, who he was also sleeping with, then disposed of Jamal's body off the highway in Grand Bahama in the bush. No respect. Cordell tried to go on with life as normal, but you see that thing called guilt? That was eating him up. So on the 26th of October, the day before my birthday, he turned himself into the police for the murders he committed. But I think he turned himself in for Jamal's murder. And y'all, guess what? He said he loved Jamal so much that he wanted him with him forever, and that's why he killed him. Those weren't the exact words verbatim, but something to that effect. And I thought that was so crazy. Don't kill each other. So y'all remember Dean, right? Cordell's baby mama / girlfriend / wife, according to some sources. Well, Cordell had stored some boxes in a room at Dean's place, and he told her, well, look, this is my room, nobody to go in this room. You heard me? Guess what was in the boxes? Bones, human bones. I can't. There was conflicting reports where it said, remember I tell you all Dean left him when she saw him dropping the weight? But according to some sources, it said that Cordell and Dean was still together up until the day he turned himself into the police. And child, you only could be together with somebody if you letting them stash boxes in your house.
Because, ex of mine stashing nothing in my house. Unless we still together. So, I don't know.
He took the boxes out of the room and put them on Dean's mother's porch. And that's where the police retrieved the boxes of bones from. So, fast forward, Cordell Farrington was arraigned before the courts and sentenced to death for the murder of Jamal Robbins, and 4 additional life sentences for the deaths of Mackinson Colas, D'Angelo McKenzie, Junior Remy, and Desmond Roll. But the charges were reduced to manslaughter because it was determined that Cordell suffered from a severe personality disorder. Child, please. Now, there was a 5th little boy named Jake Grant who actually went missing first. And it was thought that Cordell had murdered him as well. But after some investigation by the police and after all the bodies were found, they realized that how Jake died was completely different from how the others were killed by Cordell. So it turns out that Jake and some of his friends snuck over to a neighborhood pool where they went swimming, and everything was going fine up until Jake decided to swim to the bottom of the pool. And when he did that, according to one of the little boys, Jake's hand got stuck, and he must have been on there for a hot minute. But when the boys decided to go and get him, they got him from the bottom of the pool, and he had water coming out of his nose. So they panicked and they took Jake, they dragged him in the bush and left him by a fence in this wooded area. He was still alive at the time. Jake was still alive at the time when they took him in the bush. But they were so scared that they were going to get in trouble that they tried to cover up the accident, and they just left him in the bush. There was like 5 months that passed, and when Jake's body was found, the police, like I said, realized that the case was a little different. The boy wasn't murdered in the same manner as the other boys, so they started to do some digging. I ain't sure how they found out which boys to go and question, but they had brought some boys down to the police station where one of the parents said that his son admitted that there was a swimming accident and that they tried to cover it up because they was scared to go to jail. This should spark some dialogue too. Like, have you ever had like the conversation with your kids about like accountability, and if accidents happen that they should report it, and it's gonna be a bigger consequence if you try to cover something up, if you try to be like sneaky with it, you know what I mean? But anyway, let's just move on. Keep in mind that these boys were between the ages of 11 and 14, I think. And the oldest boy that they had in for questioning, I think he was the cousin of one of the boys that was there. He was 19 years old. But in the end, the 4 boys were charged with, I think, manslaughter. Yeah, I think they were charged with manslaughter. Jake was a victim of foul play. He just wasn't one of Cordell's victims. Clint Watson did this amazing documentary on Her Majesty's Prison. I was in my kitchen, and when I heard them call Cordell Farrington's name, I turned into one of the Golden Girls, and I dashed from the kitchen and I planted myself in front of that TV because I was pumped. I wanted to hear this man speak. Like, this was his first ever interview. I wanted to hear him talk. I wanted to hear his version of what went down. Imagine how shocked I was to learn that this man that committed these horrible crimes was so well spoken. I was expecting someone who probably couldn't even form proper sentences or didn't know how to conjugate verbs. I just wasn't expecting him to be so well versed. And for a split second, like, it honestly made me regret. It made me regret becoming a teacher, and I want to now be a psychologist because I'm like, I gotta get in his head. I have to get in his head. I have to know why he did what he did. He have sense. Like, that was a lot. That was a lot. But anyway, that's the end of this video. I want to say rest in perfect peace to the little black boys who lost their joy at the hands of this man who I want to call a monster. But I digress. Before I end this video, it wasn't my intention to insult or disrespect the victims or their families, or even the family of Cordell. I don't care about Cordell, but his family. It wasn't my intention to disrespect anybody with this video. I just wanted to shed light on this horrific case about the crimes that were committed against these beautiful, beautiful little boys. and hopefully spark dialogue about predators that kind of hide in plain sight in the communities, because this goes on a lot. Well, predators that prey on little kids. Anyway, I'm gonna add the clip of Clint Watson's interview with Cordell Farrington right now, but drop down in the comments. Let's chat about your thoughts on this case. Bye.
Cordell Farrington is a name most will never forget, especially if you're from Grand Bahama. He was the man convicted of murdering the 5 missing boys in 2003. Mackinson Colas, Junior Remy, D'Angelo McKinsey, Desmond Roll, and Jake Grant. It's a story that rocked the nation, leaving people puzzled as to who was behind these heinous crimes. He turned himself in. He has never spoken to the media, but on this day he agreed for the first time to tell his story. He was sentenced to death in 2006, but that was commuted to life in 2008, and in 2010 he was resentenced to life.
You're pretty much here for the rest of your life. Is that correct?
That's not for me to answer.
Are you looking to get out?
Sure.
What will that be based on, you getting out?
It would probably be based on time factor and progress within the prison, because the prison here offers the opportunity for you to make some headway to show that you want to rehabilitate yourself and move forward. So that's what I'm working on now. I'm enrolled in classes. I'm active in doing artwork around the prison, for the prison, and I've been doing it from inception. And so some of these things, some of the things that will initiate, I guess, some kind of interest for leaders to say, okay, this guy deserves a chance.
And what do you feel caused you to go down that pathway of committing those offenses?
In exploring it, because I wanted to know also. Remember, my guess was just as good as anybody's guess. My confusion was like anybody, and I was in the same dilemma, interestingly, as everybody else was. But as I began to search and try to understand why I committed the crimes I committed, it may have evidently stemmed off from my childhood upbringing.
What kind of childhood upbringing you had?
It was abusive, it was sexually abusive, emotionally and physically. I was unstable in my geographical movements because I was moving from here to there and everywhere. And this one hands, that one hands, and all of these different things. It's a conglomerate of things that contributed toward me making bad choices.
And that was your childhood?
Yes, that was my childhood.
And did that carry on throughout your life as a teenager? Were you still in a whirlwind, so to speak, as trying to find who you were?
Yeah, sure. I even on the road, I seek some guidance, some help, counsel from professional persons.
And what happened?
It just didn't last, or it wasn't taken to be as serious as I guess it turned out. Obviously, it was to be taken serious, but for some reason, it faltered. There was no real progress.
You feel the system failed you?
I'm not one to be a blame, like blaming other persons or even the system, because I made bad choices initially and ultimately, but somewhere along the line somebody failed, and I was a part of that failure.
When did you realize you had a serious problem?
When I turned myself into the police.
You turned yourself into the police?
I turned myself into the police, yes, sir.
Why did you turn yourself in?
Because I thought that was the right thing to do, and I saw I was on a trend, and I knew what I did was wrong.
It began with the first boy.
Yes.
What caused you to take him?
Probably like it's a conglomerate of things because we always exploring these same things, and one of the things that I've come to understand and learn is that the root cause must have been out of anger, my own personal.
Why were you angry?
Yeah, because of how I was brought up, and because a lot of things in my own personal life wasn't resolved, and maybe I was disgruntled in a lot of ways, and I couldn't express myself, I couldn't get it out, I couldn't get the attention.
So you took these little boys. You saw yourself. You kept remembering yourself as a little boy going through difficult times.
That could be a metaphorical outlook on it, yes. Because certainly my objective was never to hurt anybody, period. So when I look at my victims now, and I was able to assess it properly, evidently any reasonable thinking person could say, you know something, maybe this guy might have been seeing himself.
Right.
You understand?
After your first victim, what caused you to go after another boy?
Probably maybe appetite and the fact that I got away with it. Those are factors.
You repeated that 5 times. And every time, what was your motivation to do the next one?
The same motivation to do the first one. It wasn't, the motivations never changed.
What caused you to stop after the 5th boy?
It wasn't so much the 5th. The idea was that it came to a point, my own cognitive thinking, where I decided that, you know something, Cordell, this is not you, this is not right. Turn yourself in.
So, you recognize the city and the country was in an uproar trying to figure out what was going on. While people were trying to figure out what was happening, what were you doing? While this made headlines everywhere, these boys were going missing, no one could find them. What were you doing when this became headlines everywhere? What was going through your mind?
You have to remember that I was also a part of society, and I was in this. I saw all of this. I have 2 sisters who are on the police force, so I knew what the police had on the person who they was looking for, and I knew they wasn't near having any clue as to who it was or where to look. I knew that they was looking in the wrong places. I was right there. I was working. I was functioning, what you would say normally. I was working a full-time job, taking care of myself, my family. I have a daughter also out there who I was taking care of. So I was in society just among everybody else while all of this was.
And you saw the grief of these families. Did it affect you?
Of course it did. Yes, of course it did.
You knew all along where the remains of these boys were.
Yes.
And you just watched and see whether they would get close.
Yeah, it's like at the time, we were reverting back to the past now. At the time, I guess the criminal mind is that, okay, you don't want to be caught.
Correct.
And I would fit into that category. I didn't want to be caught. So certainly I would want to know anything of information or value would interest me to know where the authorities are in apprehending this individual. So I would try and revert that.
When you would take the boys each time, did you lure them? Were they afraid? Did you kidnap them? Did they know you?
No, none of them were known to me, and I didn't know any of them.
So how were you able to get them alone?
Just like I'm speaking to you, you just meet a person and say, hey, what's going on? And we start talking about Coke soda, then it leads on to ice cream. And it's just a normal setting. There's nothing suspicious about it. This guy seemed to be okay on the side of me. You don't seem to be a person who want to hurt me or who's out to get me. So it's just a normal social setting. These
So
are all normal social
you were with
settings.
them for a period of time before you killed them.
Sure.
So they trusted you.
Yeah, well, sure, I guess so.
At the point when they recognized that they were in danger, what were their reaction to you?
suppose they were afraid.
How did that affect you?
Well, at the time, I had to do what I had to do. It was like no turning back. You get to a point where there's no turning back.
It was just something that came on you. How did you kill each of them?
Swiftly. It wasn't no torture, nothing like that.
No torture.
I made it clear that I never tortured anyone, but nonetheless, it was.
Not being satisfied with his answer, I went back to Cordell Farrington on the second day. This was his response.
They met the demise.
You speaking about it as far as how did they die?
Yeah.
They were stabbed.
Okay. Each of them?
Yeah, each of them.
Okay. Were they aware of what was going on when it happened?
Yeah. It was aware.
What did their reaction? What was their reaction when it happened?
Well, it wasn't a long process like hang up or anything. It's just like you're gonna die and that's it.
You told them that?
Yes.
And what was their response when you told them?
Nonchalant, I guess.
Nonchalant?
Yeah.
No one showed any over emotion.
One person, I think Remy did. Yeah.
Did they try to resist you and fight?
No, it wasn't nothing like that.
You just stabbed them.
Remember now, we spoke for a while and I think they was comfortable and everything. So,
But they didn't have an idea what was going to happen.
exactly right. I don't think they understood the ramifications of what I said. Yeah.
Do you still think about these 5 boys?
Sometimes it might sound strange, but I've been here 14 years now. You understand what I'm saying? And I've done a lot of things while here at the prison. And sometimes, like, I know one morning I got up and I even forgot what I was charged for. You understand what I'm saying? So it could be that thrust back in the past where you just put the past completely behind you.
Is that what you?
And that's what I did.
At one point in time, I'm not sure if it was evidence or it was just rumors, saying that portions of them you would have eaten. Is that correct?
There are a lot of stories and myths about this whole thing, and I always say, why don't you come and hear it from the horse's mouth?
Tell us.
I've never eaten human flesh in my entire life. Let me just make that clear to everybody. I have never thought about eating human flesh. Cannibalism.
So that's not true.
Evidently.
You sit here today, years later. Any regrets?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah, sure. That's exactly how I felt when AM said that.
What do you say to the families? This is your camera right here. What do you say to those families? They're seeing you and hearing you talk for the first time.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember the last appearance in court, in Supreme Court, before John Isaacs, when we were dealing with the 4 boys in particular. I don't know if all of the family members were there, but if they would remember, I turned to them, I turned around to them, and I told them that I was sorry.
And you mean that?
Yes, of course.
Do you believe you're changed, you're rehabilitated?